All right, good morning to all. Welcome to this session number 2, which will address the topics BETTERRENO and build skills. So in case you're not in the right session, it's still time to join another one. My name is Amandine de Koster. I'm a project advisor at CINEA in the unit dealing with the clean energy transition. And together with my colleagues Anna-Sin and Ulrike Nüscheler, we will guide you through this session today. So we hope you find it informative and especially useful for your future potential applications. Before we look at the agenda, I'd like to remind you that you can, of course, interact with us, with all the speakers through Slido. So for doing so, you can simply connect to the Slido website and then use the EU Live 23 code. And of course, you need to select the right session. We will take these questions at the end of the session, but you can already write them now as you find new ideas and new questions based on our presentations. So this being said, I would like to briefly present the agenda. Yes, so this is our program for today. We have quite a packed schedule. We will start with a policy background presentation, so you know, where to start from and which are the key developments you should be having in mind when preparing a proposal for these two topics. We'll then move on with a presentation of the BETTERRENO topic. And we have two colleagues here who will present. Then we thought it would be particularly useful to have also a presentation by a successful applicant. And we have here a project, Live GigaRegioFactory, and the project coordinator will present in a nutshell how they came up with this application and how they prepared to be successful, and so they can share a few tips with you. We'll then continue with the second topic on skills, and we'll then finish this session with a Q&A where we will take your questions from Slido. So this is the program. I think without any further ado, I will invite the first speaker, Serena Pontolio, who's the team leader for building policy and the renovation wave implementation at DGNR. And Serena is uniquely placed, I think, to know the latest developments in the policy landscape. And she will present now the latest developments that you should have in mind when preparing a proposal under these two topics. So Serena, thank you very much for joining, and you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Amandine, for the introduction, and good morning to all the participants to this session. So what I will do, I will give you a bit of background on the policies and the policy goals which are behind also the goals that are basically driving the use of funds and the specific calls which will be presented in this session, just to give you to recall a bit the background and the policy goals when we are speaking about energy policy, and in particular issues in relation to the energy renovation of buildings. And I will spend a bit more of time indeed on what our latest development which relates to the revision of the key legislative tool that we have at EU level in relation to the renovation of buildings, which is the EPBD, the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, which is currently being revised. I would like to start with my next slide, which is just a picture. It's not on the policy, but it's basically on the overview of the key characteristics of the EU building stock. We know that in the EU we have somehow an old building stock, for which the average energy performance is quite poor. Therefore, there's a lot of potential for improvements when it comes to energy efficiency, development of renewables, and so more general improvement of energy performance. And these improvements are particularly important because they bring benefits to the environment when we think about reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, but also air pollution, and also will bring benefits to the citizens in terms of having better living in better buildings that are more performing and where energy bills are lower. So this is the reason why we are also revising the legislative framework in relation to the energy performance of buildings is really in view of this potential and the goals that we have at EU level, and also legal commitments in relation to energy and climate. And given that the building sector is the largest consumer of energy in Europe and is responsible for at least 1/3 of greenhouse gas emissions, this is really very, very important. So in my next slide, I will go more into the policies. Based on what I just said, is really comes quite naturally that the building sector is also central in the Green Deal strategy, and it was foreseen to indeed revise a lot of legislative elements of the EU legislations on energy that relates to building. And here you have a picture of the Fit for 55 package, which was presented by the Commission in 2021. So in this picture, you have basically the names of all the directive and legislative tools that have been proposed to be revised, and the revision for many of them is already completed, so the new text has been adopted. But as regards the energy performance of buildings directive, this is still ongoing. You will also see in this slide, in the left part at the bottom, a trend about the greenhouse gas emissions in the building sector in relation to the state of play, business as usual, and what are the goals in relation to our goal to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 2030. So in my next slide, I will say a bit more of what are the objectives of the revision of the energy performance of building directive as part of this bigger package and bigger efforts to step up actions at EU level to reduce emissions and make the energy system more resilient. In particular, for the building sector, as part of the climate target plan, it was foreseen that greenhouse gas emissions in buildings will have to be reduced by 60% by 2030. And from this, it comes that also final energy consumption, and in particular consumption of heating and cooling have to be reduced at a much faster pace than what is happening right now. To achieve these goals, we have adopted a strategy, the renovation wave strategy, that puts at the center really the importance of accelerating the rate of renovation in the EU, which is quite low. It's around 1% per year. But at the same time, the strategy is aimed at involving actors at all levels in this goal, but also to have better renovation, deeper renovation when it comes to the energy savings that can be achieved by one single renovation. And with the EPBD, we are also taking this goal into the legislative framework by proposing new rules that are now discussed by co-legislators to really accelerate renovations, energy renovations in the EU. We have basically two main broad objectives, and one is more in the shorter term and the one is in the longer term. And the one in the shorter term is really to already step up actions in the next decade by 2030. And then we also have a more longer term goal, which is linked to the decarbonization of the building sector and the whole EU economy in the longer term. So in my next slide, it's just again a visual of the benefits of renovation and the potential of renovations. we see that, if we take an average new building in the EU, data here are from 2019, but it's there have been small improvements in the last years, but this pretty stand still right now that an average building, a low performing building like a G class, typically is use renewables just for the 22% of heating and cooling, while if we move towards more energy performing and zero emission buildings, basically those buildings need 1/10 of energy in comparison to an average building. So really this shows the potential that is there. Then in my next slide, I will present more in detail what are the focus areas of the revision of the EPBD. But I think from what I presented so far, it's already clear that really all actions in relation to accelerate renovation, having deeper renovation, industrialized renovation, these are really the solutions that are needed to achieve the goals that we have set. And of course, lots of enabling factors will be needed to get there, including financing, but including also having the right skills, the workers with the right skills, being installers of efficient products, of efficient solution, of a highly energy performance solutions and materials, but also skills in the construction sector. So definitely without the right skills, the right resources, and the right solutions also from the market, we won't be able to achieve these goals. So relating to the focus areas, the first one is very much linked to what I just mentioned. So the core is really on the renovation of buildings, because there we have most of the potential, but also most of the barriers that prevent the market on its own to have a higher renovation rate. And for this, we have foreseen specifically new instruments, new tools, from the point of view of the legislative framework, in particular the minimum energy performance standards, to trigger the renovation of the worst performing buildings, because it's really in these buildings that we have the highest potential. So with such a big goal, it's always important to prioritize where to go first. And the idea is to start with the worst performing buildings. Then to a very important set of tools that are necessary and that can also guide decisions from building owners or from consumers in general are energy performance certificates that we have already all around the EU, but we have introduced some updates and upgrade to this tool to make it more reliable, more credible, and also more used also by the financial sector. And then an important also tool that we are proposing to upgrade is our plans at national level, renovation plans. We already have long-term renovation strategies, but we are planning to upgrade this tool to really make it key in national policies. And we propose to have national building renovation plans in each member state every 5 years, to be updated every 5 years. The second focus area is about the decarbonization of the building sector. As I said before, the building sector is the largest consumer of energy, largest sector consuming energy in the EU, 40%. There's a strong reliance on fossil fuels, so it's really important to act there and to accelerate the transition towards renewable and greener solution. And in that sense, we have introduced a new concept and a new definition for new buildings, that of zero emission building, which we also propose as a vision for the building sector in the longer term. And while the EPBD typically address the operational greenhouse gas emissions, so the emissions that are related to the energy use in building, we propose also to make first step to address the whole life cycle carbon related to buildings, so also the embodied emissions in the construction, in the materials that are used to renovate and to build for buildings. We are also proposing some additional legal mechanisms, in particular to allow member states to set bans to the use of fossil fuels in buildings, but also we are proposing to stop subsidies used at national level for heat generators that use fossil fuels. Then other very important focus areas are those related to financing, because of course to support this transition and transformation of the building stock, we need a strong enabling framework from the point of view of funds that have to be targeted where those are needed. And we are indicating some priorities already in DPBD, in particular in relation to low-income households, but also to worst performing buildings. We are also proposing a new definition of deep renovation, which we propose to be like the gold standard for renovation to help and to drive actions really towards zero emission buildings. So we propose to link the definition of deep renovation, not just to, for instance, a percentage of reduction of energy use, but also to the final goal of zero emission buildings. This is something which, you know, there are different definitions, and we are proposing one which is more encompassing. And we hope this could also help providing some clarity and drive actions towards zero emission buildings. And then we propose to introduce another information tool, which is the renovation passport, which already exists in some member states, but we would like to give this instrument a more prominent role. And the final focus area is in relation to the modernization of the building stock and system integration. And this relates to various elements that we have already in DPBD that we are upgrading and stepping up, in particular as regard the rules in relation to the infrastructure for sustainable mobility, so for charging for e-vehicles in buildings, but also the smart readiness indicator, the introduction of measures in relation to indoor air quality and ventilation, and also all the area that relates to digitalization of information tool, data, sharing of data, interoperability of database in relation to buildings. So that was just an overview really of the issues that we have foreseen to update and upgrade in DPBD. And as I mentioned, this is a process which is currently ongoing. There are discussions among co-legislators, and we hope to have an update of the legal text towards the end of the year. I will stop here, Amandine. I hope this introduction was useful from my side, and I wish a good continuation of the session and success to the applicants to this call. Thank you very much.
Yes, many thanks, Serena. Indeed, a very comprehensive overview. I'm sure it will be very useful for applicants. And yeah, definitely we look forward to receiving great applications addressing the challenges you've highlighted and the policy priorities. So yeah, many thanks for this. We will now continue with our program, but before doing so, I've noted that a few questions are popping up in the chat. I'm not fully sure why it's the case, but I would invite you to use Slido instead, so we compile all the questions in the same place. We now continue with the presentation of the BETTERRENO topic, and I would invite my colleagues Anna and Uli to take the floor, please.
Thank you, Amandine, and hello to our participants. I will present together with my colleague Ulrike the topic titled, yeah, we see the screen now, energy performance of buildings, creating the conditions to make renovation faster, deeper, smarter, and service and data driven. So as you can imagine from the title, the topic is broad in terms of content. As broad is the challenge ahead of us to decarbonize our building stock. And you will find the full text in the call document or in the funding and tenders portal. You will find the topic with the identifier BETTERRENO. If we go to the next slide, before going into the content, I would like to remind that under this type of action that we call other grants, we co-fund 95% of the eligible costs. The indicative total budget earmarked for this topic is 11 million. we consider that a contribution from our side up to 2 million per proposal would allow to address the objectives, although other amounts are possible. And for the consortium, the condition is a minimum of 3 applicants from 3 different eligible countries. And now let's see what we are looking for with this topic. Next slide, please. So in terms of objectives, the fundamental purpose of this topic is to contribute to the goals of the renovation wave strategy, and it aims to help with the implementation of current and future building policies in line with the focus areas and the new provisions in the revised energy performance for buildings directive that Serena kindly introduced before. And the topic addresses several key areas for the achievement of the ambitious EU target for the decarbonization of buildings. The topic has 3 different scopes of action, aiming to remove barriers from different fronts, and we ask you to choose your scope. So these 3 scopes are scope A for large scale deep renovation, scope B on the regulatory and administrative frameworks, and scope C on building energy data and services. And let's dive into scope A. Next slide. Scope A has a focus on facilitating large-scale deep renovation, and the barriers for this are numerous. So we propose 3 main different areas or challenges, and we invite you to focus on one of them. So these areas are the same or in the same line that of what we have been supporting in previous calls in the last 2 years under the Life Energy Programme. The first area proposed is to remove market barriers and implement large-scale deep renovation projects. And by large scale, we refer to projects that bundle a number of buildings for renovation. So for example, at district or at a neighborhood level. And here we ask proposals to develop business models, including industrialized prefabrication solutions where relevant and where possible, reducing costs, time, material use, and potential supply side disruptions for renovations, and in general, making the process easier and more attractive for all the actors involved. We look here under this area for proposals that facilitate mobilization and aggregation of the demand, and that facilitate as well the links between the supply side and the demand side being building owners and investors. And proposals should lead to the rollout of market-ready technology and packages. So on a side note here, we are not looking in this topic to develop or demonstrate new technologies, but we focus on market-ready ones and on rolling them out. And proposals should not look only at the technical part, but of course, as part of the business model, they should look at providing financing solutions, performance guarantees, look at the procurement processes, etc. Now, the second area that we propose under this scope is to support the rollout of the renovation passports for buildings. As Serena mentioned, this is a provision included as well in the proposal for a recast of the EPBD. And this is relevant when a building cannot be deeply renovated in one go, for example, due to financial reasons, but only in steps. So in this case, it can be planned as a staged renovation from the beginning to avoid possible lock-in effects in the future. And a renovation passport is exactly a tool for this planning, and it provides a clear strategy for stage renovation towards the ambition of a zero-emission building. And it helps, or it should help owners and investors plan the best timing and scope for the interventions, linking also to finance and funding schemes. And at EU level, there will be a framework for renovation passports, and at national level, Serena already mentioned that some countries are already using them, sometimes with a different name. So proposals should align to anything already in place in their territories. And on another hand, this tool is closely related to the energy performance certificate, so proposals should consider this link as well. And we also ask you to coordinate with any existing initiatives like support schemes, subsidies, or one-stop shops for home renovation, for example. If we move to the next slide, we'll see area 3 or challenge 3, which has a focus on improving the coordination of supply market actors. So the renovation sector is highly fragmented with many small companies providing many maybe very specific solutions, and they have difficulties in coordinating to offer clients a more complete renovation for optimal energy performance. So here we ask proposals to remove barriers and improve this coordination. The aim is to help the sector establish partnerships, consortia, and deliver long-lasting business or collaboration models that will enable them to deliver deep renovations with guarantees. Proposals should also help to reduce risks and transaction costs for these companies, should facilitate the sharing of information, help them showcase offers, etc. And it's important to ensure the uptake of the project activities by the market and to have an endorsement of the solutions. For example, you can do this by involving professional organizations. And to finish with the scope A, we welcome action in all markets. Just make sure you are clear on how your proposal fits the need of the market, depending on the readiness and the maturity. And we welcome in particular less mature markets, as they may need more help and action to progress in this field. And regardless the area that you choose to address, you should make sure that the activities you propose are well integrated into the local context. Next slide. So finally, for scope A, in terms of impacts, proposals should demonstrate how they will contribute to the challenge chosen. So develop business models, roll out renovation passports, improve the coordination of factors, and in general, regardless of what you choose, you are expected to deploy effective and replicable solutions that will lead to increased rates of renovation in the places where you will be acting. So you will need to estimate the impacts of your activities during the project and after, and for this you will need to use indicators. So in the topic, we propose some that are specific for this topic. So for example, the increase in renovation rate and deep renovation rates. So this would be a common goal, let's say, regardless of what you do. But you may trigger as well a number of renovations with reduced costs. There may be a number of buildings that could be equipped with a renovation passport thanks to your activities if you choose to tackle this area. Or there may be a number of companies that would benefit from improved coordination for deep renovation projects. So you will need to convince the evaluators on why your proposal should be funded. And for this, you may also have other indicators that you may want to put forward. In any case, remember to be ambitious, but also realistic and credible. And then there will be indicators that are common for the whole program. So for all the topics like energy savings or investments in sustainable energy that need to be addressed by all proposals. Next slide. We move on now to scope B, and this scope is looking into the regulatory and administrative frameworks. So here we are asking proposals to promote evolutions in that sense, to remove barriers to building energy renovation and to stimulate more ambitious renovations in line with the revision of the EPBD and its ambition. So the topic gives some examples of aspects that proposals could address, that like adapting the legal and regulatory framework, permitting rules, administrative procedures, etc., to ease the implementation of energy efficiency measures and on-site renewable energy in buildings. Proposals may as well address governance, decision-making, and financing in or of co-ownership structures. So here we have in mind the challenge for renovations in multi-ownership, multi-apartment buildings. Another example is to adapt public grants, loans, guarantees, or technical assistance schemes to have higher ambitions in terms of deep renovations and not support mostly shallow ones, as happens in some cases. And your reality in your territory may, of course, present additional challenges. So what is important is that the proposal is clear in terms of the context, the barriers to be addressed, and the governance level tackled. Like, is it a local issue what you are addressing, or do you need to go beyond that? And we don't expect only desk research. We really expect proposals to involve the relevant public authorities, to implement actual changes and adaptations, and to actively exchange on examples and best practices. Next slide. And in terms of impacts, proposals should demonstrate how they will contribute to the challenges I just presented, so I won't repeat them. Again, we want to see quantification of your impacts via indicators on what you estimate you could achieve with your activities, or you could trigger with your activities during the project and in the future. So for this topic, we think your proposal should lead to, again, increased renovation rates and deep renovation rates thanks to your activities. Your proposal may lead as well to a number of legislations, policies, frameworks, or strategies being created or adapted. You can also measure the number of public authorities adapting their policy and or their legal and administrative frameworks, and the associated population that would be affected or benefited from these changes. And maybe your proposal will also lead to a number of co-ownerships being supported by your activities, plus the common indicators for the whole program. And this is all for scope B. I see the next slide already on the screen, so I hand over to Ulrike now.
Okay, now it's changed back. Thank you, Anna. Yeah, super. Thank you, Anna. So yeah, I'm Ulrike. And going immediately to scope C, that you see it on the slide as well. Let's quickly remind ourselves of the title of the topic, making renovation faster, deeper, smarter, service and data-driven. And yes, indeed, under scope C, we focus on those aspects that relate to data and services. What does that mean? It means that under scope C, we look specifically for actions that improve the availability and quality of buildings data, but also the access to buildings data. This includes the use of data for financing of services, but it also includes the use of high quality data to improve the reliability of the instruments that usually designed to assess, inform, and value the energy performance of buildings, notably energy performance certificates, but also others. So what would, in this sense, be actions that we strive to support? This could be, for example, actions that help develop methodologies for a more robust collection, structuring and integration of data, for example, through innovative methods to measure and calculate energy performance and energy savings, but also contribution from sources of flexibility, specifically for the purpose of demand response. But also methodologies, for example, to measure non-energy benefits. That's increasingly important. It could be, secondly, also support for actions that, in line with the Article 14 as proposed for the revision of the EPBD, help improve the access to data, on the one hand for building owners, tenants and managers, but also on the other hand of third parties. And third parties meaning, for example, financial institutions, but also service providers like ESCOs and aggregators. It can be, thirdly, as regards instruments and notably energy performance certificates, the development and rolling out of approaches using integrated data collection and data processing, both in order to achieve better reliability and accuracy. And linked to this, because that is the precondition, the enhancing of the market uptake of EPCs, because if they're not reliable, there won't be a real market uptake. Fourthly, it could be actions that promote the use of innovative technologies and digital tools also for inspections. So not EPCs assessments, but inspections of equipment and appliances. Moreover, it could be actions that help develop or connect or integrate tools and platforms. So not any platforms, but those that contribute to the coordination of data models, methodologies, and standards. And finally, it could be actions that help develop and deploy services that use actual energy consumption data, metered savings, and flexibility provided by active buildings. So, but these are just examples of activities. It doesn't mean that you couldn't propose different activities. Just whatever you propose would need to contribute to the objectives of this topic and the subtopic, meaning improving the quality and the access to data and to improve the use of data for better instruments and services. Note, however, Note, however, that, and this is really important, and Anna has already kind of indicated this, that technologies can only be part of the action as enablers, but they cannot be at the center of the action. That is very, very important. So demonstration of technologies would not be in the scope of the action, but of course technologies might be needed, and technological solutions, innovative technological solutions might be needed to make sense of some of these activities. But these cannot, they can be supported, but only to a limited degree, and it would need to be justified. Last comment on that, because you might see that also under the policy topic, specifically under scope C for the implementation of the EPBD, you also see aspects that address EPCs, data governance, and national buildings, but these would be focusing purely on policy implementation. But you're invited to have a look at this as well. So next slide, please. So we're coming to the impact and indicators, specifically for the scope C, which is a bit different from scope B and C. Indeed, proposals should demonstrate how they will contribute to improved availability, quality, accuracy of, and access to buildings data. You should show how you contribute to enhance use of building performance data for services, how you contribute to improved reliability and market uptake of energy performance certificates, and how you contribute to the uptake of improved methodologies to measure and monetize primary benefits and co-benefits. So for the indicators that you also see on the slides, I won't read all of them to you, but just to mention a few. For example, you could express the impact of your project or your activity, for example, by the number of references, evidencing the use of improved buildings data by stakeholders, or the number of parties benefiting from access to building and performance data, building performance data, or the number of EPC schemes and assessment procedures that are tested and deployed, or, for example, references evidencing the use of more accurate and reliable EPCs by stakeholders. Next slide. And here we come back with the next slide, and I will be very short because I assume that most of you, or some of you at least, have listened to the plenary where we explained the impact in more detail. But just to give a methodological overview of impacts and indicators, just to say that the impact of the action should be reflected through 3 levels of indicators that you see here: the topic specific, the activity specific, and the common indicators. So the topic specific indicators, these are the ones that you find established for every topic. So underneath, just to say you're not obliged to address all of them, but please decide which are the relevant ones, and please address those in detail. Then these should be complemented by activity-specific indicators that you can or should establish for your specific action, so tailored to your action and capturing impacts that you could otherwise not express and in the topic-specific indicators that are given. Then the third level is the common program indicators, which are, as you find in the topic text, picked for ones, meaning investments into sustainable energy, energy savings, waste production, and CO2 reduction. They might be partly covered by the topic-specific indicators, and they're just part of the wider 11 indicators that you also need to address in Part C. So impact should be quantified for a project duration, but also for 5 years after the project end. And of course, in order to be credible, proposals should present a starting point and the underlying assumption. And please, that is really important, establish clear links to of what you're doing, so the activity you propose and the impact that you establish. Many thanks.
Thank you, Ulrike. Thank you, Anna, for this presentation. As I mentioned earlier, we will take questions at the end of the session. I would now like to ask our technical support team to show the details for Slido, because I sense there is still a bit of confusion. So this is the QR code you can use, or you can also go on slido.com and use the code EULive23. So please write your questions, preferably in Slido rather than in the chat. I still see some questions popping up, as it will be easier to deal with them afterwards. Now we move on to the project presentation, because we would also like to hear what makes an excellent proposal. And for this, we have invited Pierre-Antoine Dufresne, who is a project manager at Greenflex in France. And Pierre-Antoine is coordinating the live GigaRegioFactory project that started in November last year, and which is focusing on industrialized net zero energy renovation. So Pierre-Antoine, you have the floor.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. So I'm going to introduce you this project and how we built our proposal to answer to this call of proposals. I have a lot of things to say, but I'm going to focus on main key messages just because to be short, just only in 10 minutes. Maybe can we go to the next slide, please? So the first thing, if I can say, the first thing that we have to advise for this call of proposal, the first thing is obviously to analyze the topic, the main topic. This topic was BETTERRENO, called BETTERRENO, and the main issue was to imagine how we can accelerate or faster industrialized deep energy renovation. So that's for the main objective. So maybe the first thing is to analyze the topic and to highlight the main dimension or words that are important. For example, if you can read less disruption to building occupants, to reduce costs, to go faster for these renovations, etc., to integrate some digital tools, etc. So all of these topics should be included in your in the design of the proposal. Maybe can we go to the next slide, please? And then a thing that is requested in the proposal is to describe the context. So the first thing I will advise is to make a well understanding of the context. In the case of renovation, the context is the need for high performance and massive retrofits, and the fact that it has never been so strong because of a lot of issues. For example, regulatory issues because of the laws of the decarbonization schedules. For example, we talk about Fit for 55, but maybe a social issue too, because of the energy costs, which are increasing. Climate issue, obviously, with expectations from stakeholders, and the supply issue, which is concerning the fact that prices are very had increased, and because of the war in Ukraine, the need to go out from fossil gas, for example. And the main fact of that is considering that we have to make a sort of energy jump from the global buildings, the wall buildings of today, to reach, to achieve energy performant building at the horizon of 2050. Maybe could read to the next slide. The second part of this thinking is to think about existing initiatives, and we would to build on these past initiatives. And the first one in which we are working for is the Energy Strong movement. And today, to build this proposal, we thought about how we can continue, how we can improve what was done during this energy strong deployment, to imagine what should come next after. And the main fact was that we need now to move from thousands to millions homes renovated. And so to think what we have done with this approach, which was an approach of net zero energy retrofits with a long life warranty, using off-site and industrialized solutions to make building retrofits. So we can go to the next slide. And then you have to analyze the market barriers. it is something that is requested in the proposal topics, but I suggest that you have to go deeper in this analysis to imagine what is gonna happen next. And concerning this topic of deep renovation, we have to understand better the link between costs on the one end and typologies and building archetypes on the other end, because both are linked, and it is the main thing that we want to work in our project. So the first dimension is the cost of operations, how we can reduce it, and the second part is about home archetypes. And because we saw that it's not only a question of volume, we have to better choose, to better select building typologies to make efficient renovation, and with a reduced cost to massify them. So we can go to the next slide. Another dimension that we have to analyze is the link between market players. And if we have a look on supply side, you have on the one end some building companies or contractors with a lack of industrial culture that we have to change, and on the other end, industrialized solution providers which are already industrialized, but which need to scale up in terms of industrial capacities, industrial production capacities to build these solutions, these industrialized solutions to renovate more and with a better quality. So you can go to the next slide. And when we link all of these topics, all of these subjects, you can imagine a sort of analysis of main project issue. So you have first the project owner issues, we need to reduce costs and to have economically balanced operations. Then you have the contractors or integrators issue, which are asked for to do things faster and cheaper, and industrialized solution providers who need to know better the existing buildings and to have market visibility to develop their solutions. And then if we make all of these things together, we can have a sort of collaborative visibility, and then on the one end some volume planned in time with when we have a lot of demand for homes renovation, and on the other end, adapted and scaled solution to have a cost reduction. You can go to the next slide, please. So it is the global project answer, and how we saw the things is to have some 3 clear key points to facilitate all of this work by helping demand and supply side to scale up. And the core of our proposal was to suggest these 3 work axes, these 3 clear work axes, which are interconnected. So first is the idea to have a tool for better aggregation strategy, to better select homes to make large-scale renovation. It's the idea of massify the demand, to give volume and visibility. Then the second point is to help integrators and building companies to this evolution of the market and of the way of doing things. And the third one is to help industrialized solution suppliers to scale up, to have industrial capacity, which will help them to answer to these markets. So you can go to the next slide. And after that, with an important thing is to set up a consortium able to carry out this project. And in our case, we are 12 partners in 4 countries, and with 2 different roles. The first one is a sort of market development team's role, and the second role is to have some beta testers. As we develop some tools, we would to have some supply and demand side partners to test these tools and to challenge our work to be better and to have a better impact. So you can go to the next slide.
Pierre-Antoine, may I kindly ask you to wrap up maybe in 1-2 minutes? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Just to finish, some main feedback, if you have to remind on the contents. The first one is to propose a sort of vision and ambition, and we suggest to use the why, what, how approach to just determine, to just have the good idea. Another very important point is to propose some new economic models that can be replicated. And how can they be replicated? Because they align the interests of stakeholders. And it's very important if we want to make this high performance ecological models to be massified. Just to connect to existing projects is also important. Do not hesitate to be inspired by different European countries to have some new ideas, to well evaluate the impact of the project, as it was already said, and to take the time to detail the project actions in terms of communication and dissemination. Next slide, please, and after it will be finished. About the organizational question, just we should advise to start the building of the consortium at the same time as building the desired answer for your proposal. To have some complementary skills, in your team, to divide up the roles between you for the drafting of the proposal. To have a sort of retro planning to be sure that you will send your proposal at the due time. And do not forget to take the time for letters of support, to collect letters of support. That will be a good supporting point for your proposal. And I am finished.
Many thanks again, Pierre-Antoine, for this very good overview of all the steps you went through to put together this successful application. And I really hope it will inspire people who are on this call. Anyway, you are staying with us until the end of the session. So if people have questions, they can also put them through Slido. Many thanks again. We are now moving to the final presentation, which is on the build skills topic, which I will have the honor to present. So while the slides are loading, I can start immediately by saying that obviously this topic complements very much the one that we present earlier. Next. So we'll go through quickly some policy background for this specific topic, because it's very specific. So you will have it in the slides as a later reference. Then I will go to the actual topic, and then we'll move to the Q&A. So next, you can move on. So when it comes to skills for the building sector, there's clearly a big change in the landscape for professionals. So we know that we want to complete the renovation wave, but without a qualified workforce, this is obviously not going to happen. There are many reasons for that. I've listed a few here. It's clear that the construction sector is facing many challenges. And if I had to pick only one, I would say the lack of time just to enroll in training activities is a key problem. At the same time, just to add to the difficulty, we also see that the skill set that is required from professionals is broadening every year, basically, with new technologies and new approaches appearing, which is captured on this graph here. So it's a clear challenge we are facing here. Of course, we are not starting in a vacuum. So in the next slides, I will briefly highlight some of the key policy initiatives that have been set up at European level. To start with, the Pact for Skills, which was launched in November 2022 under the EU Skills Agenda. Under the Pact for Skills, basically, the key stakeholders in a given industrial sector are asked to join forces and to put forward concrete upskilling actions and to sign up to a charter. For construction, there is a dedicated pact, and the ambition is to upskill or reskill around 3 million workers in the next 5 years. So this gives us an idea of the magnitude of the challenge. Next. Even more targeted, more sectoral initiative is the European Construction Blueprint, funded under Erasmus+, which has gathered vocational education and training providers and construction companies in 12 member states. And basically what they have developed is a sectoral strategy for skills intelligence and labor market relevant skills development around 3 pillars: the digitalization, the energy efficiency, and the circular economy. I don't have time to present all the results in details now, but I would really invite you to consult the website because it's very rich and it has a lot of things that could be useful for potential application. Next. We have also run a very targeted initiative called BUILDSKILLS, and actually for more than 10 years now. We've funded it through successive programs, as you can see on this slide, first under Intelligent Energy Europe, then under Horizon 2020, and currently under the LIFE Clean Energy Transition Program. We funded both national and transnational projects. We funded projects dedicated to blue-collar workers, but also white-collar workers. We also looked at demand-side measures, not only to supply the skills, but to create the demand for skills. We funded national skills strategies. So it's a very rich set of projects, which I would invite you to consult in case you are considering to put forward an application. Next. In a nutshell, what BUILDSKILLS is aiming to do is, as I said, developing national skills strategies, developing new or updated qualification frameworks, supporting an innovative training toolbox, training professionals, training of trainers, obviously, because we know that we need this, but also increase the recognition and demand for skills, whether through certification, procurement, or campaigns, and obviously feeding back to policy, such as the long-term renovation strategies. On this slide, you see the latest results pack we have issued, and you can consult the report. It's full of interesting project stories, I believe. Next. Under LIFE Clean Energy Transition, what we have funded so far, so in the last 2 years, is an update of the national roadmaps that were established about 10 years ago. So here you can see the list of countries that are working currently on this updated national roadmaps of skills measures with a 2030 horizon. There should be already interesting results available after the summer, namely the status quo analysis, which will analyze the skills gaps and needs in the national market. Later this year, and especially early next year, we should have the national roadmaps. So please have a look. I would say this is also very useful background. Next, we move now to the actual topic. So what this topic is about, it's about upskilling and reskilling interventions, enabling a decarbonized building stock and energy system integration. The objective, I believe, is quite straightforward, is to increase the number of skilled professionals at all levels of the value chain. As mentioned here, the indicative EU contribution is between 1 and 1.5 billion euro. And importantly, because it's also different than from other topics, here proposals may be submitted by a single applicant from a single eligible country. When it comes to the scope, it's quite clear. It's about developing, testing, validating, and preparing the deployment of new and/or the upgrade of existing training and qualifications for all types of professionals involved in the value chain. Important that, of course, these schemes are tailored to the reality of the national markets that will be targeted. Next. The focus of the topic is on vocational education and training, but this does not necessarily preclude to address other parts of education, for example, higher education, if this is found relevant. It's important that the application specify the professional profiles that will be addressed. So of course, an application doesn't have to target all the professional profiles in the value chain, but the choice of profiles should be clearly stated. When it comes to the thematic scope, there are 5 scopes, let's say, or 5 thematic areas, and applicants should address only one of those 5. So we will now go in more detail. Next. The first area relates to the skills development supporting the EPBD. And there, applicants can cover one or several of the following: the skills for carrying out building energy audits, the skills related to inspections of heating, air conditioning, and ventilation systems, the skills related to renovation passports, and all the skills enabling to leverage accessibility, fire safety, or seismic safety interventions for energy efficiency improvements. Next, the second area relates to skills supporting the decarbonization of the building stock. And here you may address one or several of the following. So obviously, deep renovation, nearly zero energy buildings bridging to zero emission buildings, whole life carbon, of course, circular construction and resource efficiency, digital skills. Yes, we know this is important, in particular through building information modeling, and as well skills for upgrading the smartness of buildings. So one or several of these topics can be addressed to develop new or upgraded qualification schemes. Next. The third area, it relates to skills for small-scale renewable energy deployment and energy system integration. So here we look at notably increasing the number of trained installers and maintenance staff, in particular for on-site solar systems. Definitely with a need to look at the actual skills gaps in companies. As well, applicants could address the upskilling needs for the energy system related digitalization with a view to allow the energy management in homes, buildings, and energy communities, covering several buildings or larger areas and districts. Next. The fourth area, it's a bit different. It's focusing on the development and delivery of innovative on-site training methods, especially for craftspeople. So here, we know that the lack of time is an essential, really a big problem. So here we look at solutions to address the need for on-site training. Next slide. The fifth and last area, it relates to the skills needed for the managers of integrated home renovation services or one-stop shops. So this can be also a dedicated focus of your proposal. Just a note that we have also 2 other topics that have a skills dimension. There is one on renewables and waste heat-based district energy networks, the DHC. It has a skills scope. And as well, the topic on heat pumps has a scope on skills. So depending on what you want to do, you may have to look at those 3 topics. Next, I'll try to wrap up. Some important elements that have to be addressed regardless of the thematic area. First is to provide details on the actual scope and content of the training and qualification schemes you will be developing or upgrading, especially the profiles, the duration of the training. It needs to be specific. Also, you will need to include activities to ensure the recognition of trained and qualified professionals. So not only supplying skills, but ensuring some sort of long-term sustainability. Train-the-trainer activities should also be included. Very important is to include a testing and validation phase for these qualification schemes. This is defined further in the topic text, but basically it should be sessions with professionals to test the new qualification frameworks, the curricula, the training material, and also to actually get feedback and to have a feedback loop to improve the qualifications during the lifetime of the project. And this is an important element. And Also, proposals then are asked to include a strategy to ensure that their activities will be continued and scaled up after the project lifetime. Next. I won't repeat this, so we can move on to the next slide, which shows the topic-specific impacts. I think they are quite straightforward. It's the number of qualification schemes that will be developed or upgraded and then tested, the number of professionals with increased qualifications, the number of trained professionals, the number of trained trainers, and the number of requalified professionals. Of course, the horizontal impacts will also apply in this case. Next, I think we've reached the end of this particular presentation. On the next slide, you can also see the CINEA Live CET email address that you can use should you have questions that will not be addressed now in the question and answer session. So many thanks. We can close this presentation and move on to the actual Q&A, and I will then pass the floor to Ulrike for this.
Thank you. Thanks, Amandine. A couple of people have posted questions inside the normal Zoom chat. We didn't even know it was possible. We have asked the people to refeed the questions into Slido, and here they are. So I would just pick some questions and ask the different people to reply. Maybe I start already with the one on the very top, which is for Pierre-Antoine. Very interesting question. So how much time did you need to prepare the proposal, Pierre-Antoine? Thank you.
Yeah, I would say around 2 to 3 months before the due dates, something like that. Because it takes time to set up the consortium, to define the main objectives of your proposal. So yeah, to anticipate will be my suggestion.
Yes, and it's actually also our recommendation. Take enough time, foresee enough time for the different steps and for the involvement of people. Maybe we just hop over to the next two, because I think they're both linked to build up skills. So the first one would be regarding the project indicators. How are we supposed to calculate primary energy savings or investments in sustainable energy by training activities? Well, my guess is that it's referring to build up skills, but maybe also to the other to BETTERRENO. And then, but the secondly is certainly build up skills specific. Are project proposals related to reskilling, upskilling, and renewables, mainly PV, eligible under the build up topic, or is there another that is more suitable? Can I just ask Amandine to reply to those two?
Yeah, maybe I'll start with the second one. So when it comes to reskilling, upskilling in RES and mainly PV, if you look at only PV, then it would be under this topic. Now, if you look at more sophisticated, maybe combination with heat pumps, for example, or hybrid systems, then you may need to look at the heat pump topic. So I think it really depends on what is your exact focus. Whether in doubt, you can also contact us with a more specific questions later on. Yeah, for the impacts, of course, a good question, because when we talk about training activities, of course, the type of impact we generate is, I would say, slightly probably different than when we actually do retrofitting activities. So of course, we indicate in the topic that you should only address impacts that are relevant based on your activities. For energy, we still believe that you can assess, you can make a realistic assessment of the number of people that will be trained, and then the number of people that will actually apply the new knowledge, which probably will not be 100% from the very beginning. And from there, you can derive the reduction in the performance gap that is linked to the improved workmanship. That's usually how we suggest to approach. At least that's one way to approach it. So we know that there is still an impact of the improved workmanship, of course, on the quality of buildings and therefore on the energy efficiency of the building. But certainly this is not the easiest impact to address for this topic.
Indeed, many thanks. And this is also why we try to explain better the different levels of indicators and also try to explain how you can probably combine them to really make a meaningful statement. So looking at the next question, thank you very much, Amandine. I would say that afterwards, I would maybe reply to myself to the question on the scope C and on the equipment cost. But can I ask maybe my colleague Anna to address the one that says BETTERRENO can proposals address more than one scope? And maybe also the one on the very bottom, Anna, if you see it, to what extent are sports buildings renovation, pool, gymnasium, athletics, tracks, etc., and headquarters of sports organizations eligible for the CET program?
Okay, so on the addressing more than one scope, in principle, in the topic, we ask proposals to select their scope and why. This is because normally we think that for each of the scopes that we propose, you would need a different approach, different type of activities, and also you need to involve different type of actors if the proposal is really well targeted, let's say. But this said, if it makes sense, of course, you can address more than one scope, but you would need to signal your center of gravity, so to say, and justify very well why do you have an enlarged scope in your proposal. So you would need to be convincing that everything is coherent, that it makes total sense to run those activities in parallel or as part of the same project and with the same group of stakeholders involved, I would say. And also, I think it was said in the plenary, don't cover things or keywords just artificially and superficially, because sometimes we see proposals where this is really evident, and this may even penalize you in the evaluation. And on the next question, which is the very last one, right? To what extent are sports building renovation eligible? Well, this refers to the whole energy program, so I can't speak for all the topics, but regarding BETTERRENO, the topic is in principle not prescriptive on the type of buildings, the sector, so you could decide to address residential, non-residential, public-private. You could have a mix. You could decide to focus on one of them, and you would need to explain and calculate your impacts accordingly, I would say. And of course, there are some elements, for example, if you address scope B, the matter of co-ownerships, that's very much focusing on multi-apartment buildings, let's say. So it would be more difficult that sports buildings fit in there. But for the others, yeah, it's a matter of being convincing on why addressing this type of buildings would make a difference and why the replication opportunities would be meaningful.
Many thanks, Anna. I think very meaningful replies. I see it's almost at the end of the session, but I will try to quickly address the other questions on scope C that are there. So on the BETTERRENO scope C, indeed, is development of new technology in scope, if it's necessary to implement a methodology or service, or only existing technology can be considered? It's a difficult question. I mean, as you know, Life CET is not a technology development program. This is why we have Horizon Europe. So I don't think it would be a good idea to really have a focus on the technology development inside the Life CET project. However, if it's a small part and it just Now I wave the fire alarm, perfect. And if it's just a small part of the action and you need it in order to implement a service, it could be eligible. It's very hard to reply to that question without knowing further details. So it's a question of size and scale and the weight this technology development has. In principle, no, but there might be cases where it just fits. And maybe, I mean, it's partly related. Our equipment cost eligible, as we said already in the plenary, they are as such eligible to a very limited extent in exceptional cases. And if justified, a typical example would, for example, monitoring equipment that you need, like sensors or smart boxes or whatever. Also there, it must be only to a limited extent. It should not make the bulk of the budget. I hope that is clear. I'm just wondering, there was another one on data. Yeah.
Can I quickly come in? Sorry, can I quickly come in on equipment for the skills topic?
Yes.
Because in the skills topic, we ask you to develop testing and validation phase, but the topic makes it clear that equipment costs related to new training facilities wouldn't be covered. So just to make it clear.
Yeah, indeed, very important comment. Thank you, Mandine. Yeah, the one on the top. Can data cover also social goals combined with environmental ones, for example, on the involvement of qualified staff or of declared work? I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly. Of course, I mean, since under live CET and specifically under this topic, as much as under the policy topic, we also address co-benefits. In that sense, yes, absolutely. So if you develop a methodology, a tool that can also capture and grasp social benefits like employment or involvement of qualified staff, that is certainly an added value. If it's the absolute center of the action, then it gets a bit difficult because it's in the end it's a program for sustainable energy and not for training. I mean, build up skills, yes, but it's if you refer to the data part of BETTERRENO, then it can be one part, but it should not be the absolute focus of the action. So we start to be over time. Let me see, is there something? So can I go back to Pierre-Antoine maybe? Just and by the way, we have a second Pierre-Antoine, our own Pierre-Antoine, who is the one managing the Slido here for us. So thank you also to Pierre-Antoine that you don't see, but now I go to the Pierre-Antoine that you do see. So for Pierre-Antoine, how did you find your consortium partners?
Yeah, very good question. It's a partners. With them we already work on other missions or projects that the first that we call because we already know them and their needs, their aim to work on topics, etc. So I will suggest to use your network and the partners with them you already work, and it's all.
Thanks a lot for that fast answer. I think the second one we have already covered, no?
Yes.
Yes, we've covered. So then I can say quickly something on the successful case study. It can, it's not excluded. Sorry, it's now the fourth one. Can a successful case study which occurred outside the EU can be cited for policy improvement of the EU? As such, yes. I mean, I just remember for the smart services part, for example, we always quote, not we always, there was a project on pay for performance that absolutely took as a case study the pay for performance schemes established in the US. So this as such is absolutely possible. It must make sense. So next one, can the capacity building at a global scale be part of these projects? I don't know if the colleagues have a comment on this. I'm not sure if I understand the question. If capacity building is a build-up skills specific question, I'm not sure. Would you have an answer, my colleagues? Capacity building as such is a core element, of course, of live CET. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Then if it's capacity building for public authority, we have specific topics on that under the local topic, under the policy topic for national administrations. If it's capacity building in industry, that would be more the business topic. So it's a bit difficult to understand what the exact target of that question is. And I think I would then like to go over to the last one that we find here and ask Amandine to comment on this, and then maybe close the question and answer session.
Yep, thank you. I can be quick. The answer is no. You don't have to have been involved in those initiatives, but you still need to have a good understanding of what they have delivered, because you will need to show how you build on them, at least to some extent. So I hope this clarifies. Thank you very much. I think we are coming to an end with a few minutes delay. We hope you found the session informative. If it hasn't answered all your questions, maybe new questions will pop up in a few hours. You can either write to us at the CENEA Live CET email address that you will find at the end of the presentations. The presentations will be made available shortly, as well as the recording of this session. Of course, you may as well contact your national contact points. They're also there to help you. And also a reminder that you may, of course, continue to connect with potential project partners through the B2Match platform, which remains open. So with this, I'd like to thank all the speakers for their presentations and all the participants. And we wish you a very pleasant rest of the day and good luck for your future applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you also to our Pierre-Antoine. Vernon.